Hi, everyone. Real quick, I'm not marketing Apple's presentation software. So, okay, I'm Daniel Greenfeld, like Ola said, and I'm the guy who has to follow up with after Brandon Rhodes. I mean, that was amazing. So I'm pretty nervous. This is me on GitHub and Twitter and any other place where they want a handle. I'm PyDanny. I work as a principal for Cartwheel Web. We do software consulting, Python and Django. We're always looking for clients. And the company is named after my habit of doing cartwheels in awesome places like Poland. In addition to that, I co-wrote a book, 2 Scoops of Django, and it was released this year. And I co-wrote it with Audrey Roy, my fiancée, who, raise your hand. So I want to make it clear, I'm a co-author. This is, what I committed, and this is what Audrey committed. So, and Audrey, in addition to that, did the art and design. So I'm a co-author. So make sure that you also congratulate her. Okay, on to the talk. Django conferences have this tradition. It is where some luminary, someone important in Python or outside of Python, is brought in to rant about Django. They can say whatever they want, they can be critical. And it's been going on since the first talk at DjangoCon, the first one at Google in 2008. But I'm not giving one of those talks. Well, yeah, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to rant. So my example that I used to do, and I'm opening up now, is that class-based views suck. I used to say this all the time on Twitter, on IRC, and forums. The only reason why I didn't blog about it was because some people have written some really good blog articles, and I felt I couldn't do the rant justice compared to what they said. It was awesome. It's fun. It was easy. It was fun. You just go and say, oh, this thing sucks. But you know it's hard. You know it's really hard because rants are easy and they're fun. And that's delivering stuff that works. Because like I said, rants are fun, right? Like when Zed Shaw delivers a rant, it is awesome, especially if you're not on the receiving end. And Zed's a good friend, but the thing is I have to admit, I can't imagine Zed would have been here if he hadn't written his book, Learn Python the Hard Way, or his whole series of books. His work, not just his books, but also some of his open source libraries, are the reason why he's invited to talks, or to conferences, why he's considered really cool. I mean, the rants, they get old after a while. And they don't make anything better. They just make people sad. Like I said, the thing is the hard thing is getting your hands dirty and contributing, participating. And when I would rant about class-based views, Yanis Lytle, who unfortunately is not here, but we all wish he was, he used to say this to me. He would say, we accept pull requests. Django accepts pull requests. Why don't you submit a pull request? And, or another thing is running events. Running events is hard. Look at this conference. I mean, it seems to be going really well, but I've run enough to know events not of this scale to know that there are tons of things going wrong that we don't know about and that are making it hard for the organizers to sleep. But they are contributing. They're doing this event so that way we can come together and not just watch talks and eat food and drink beer, but so that way we can come together and talk and debate how to move Django forward, and then we get to code on it and make it happen. And then there's the books, right? So Zed's book has brought, hundreds of thousands, Zed says millions, to Python and Django. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it's millions because it has that far-reaching effect. And he's written books for other things now. This is really, really hard. If you can imagine if you have trouble writing a blog article like once a month, imagine writing a whole book and then receiving the negative criticism on it. That's hard. So these are all kinds of ways to make working stuff. So this is not a rant about Django. That's not what this talk is. Instead, it's a celebration about what makes Django possible and what makes Django awesome. And it's about people delivering working stuff, and that their hard work has made stuff like this conference and many of our jobs and careers possible. So yeah, it's awesome. And you know what? I thought about ending the talk here because we have a fish above a circus tent. But I thought, it wasn't going to be enough. So I thought I'd come up with some reasons as to why Django is awesome. Okay, reason number one, Django is everywhere. This is a list that I grabbed from, I think, someone else's talk, but don't let anybody know. I changed it some, so I'm not really copy pasting. So I have a couple that I want to mention. One is Django is used at pretty much every NASA center across the United States. I started with Django, I started with Python and then Django at NASA. And then NASA, one of the projects that used Django and Python at NASA was Nebula. And Nebula is what has become OpenStack, which is driving a lot of the work that Red Hat and Rackspace, and I'm sure there's companies that I can't think of in Europe that are also benefiting from OpenStack. So part of this is Django. We're driving the marketplace. Okay, reason number two. Django is powered by Python, and Python is awesome. Python has this style guide, right? We all know about this. PEP 8, I'm sure someone mentioned the lightning talk or talk, but it's, we all have the same kind of coding style. And we also have Zen. So PEP 20, Tim Peters came up with this poem, and we follow it, we debate it, and if someone violates it, we take them to task. But most importantly about Python, what makes it awesome is it shares the same first two letters as me. So this is critical about Python's awesomeness. Okay, so Django's awesome APIs. It's understandable. Besides Django, there's no interesting names in the Django stack. So models, views, logging, it's boring, it's dull. But we remember it because it's clear English. I'm not having to interpret what Adrian Holovati's pun for, I got an airplane. Should I wait? Okay, I'll keep talking. I don't think it's that loud. So we don't have to worry about, Adrian Holovati's puns on things. We're not dealing with beaker or celery or underscore. Everything is intuitive to even non-native English speakers. I'll give you a case study of this in action. And I'm going to compare Python request to the Django test client. A lot of people already know this one. So here I've got my handy little requests code that I've got that you can see over there. And I'm doing a couple gets against my localhost and checking the status code. But actually, I'm not. I think I turned this off. Oh, okay. So all I did is I instantiated the Django test client under the variable name of requests, and it looks pretty much the same. In fact, most operations are the same. And there you go. There's my neat little arrow. But I think it's interesting when two popular tool sets have similar API designs. And I don't know if Kenneth was inspired by the Django test client, but this is an intuitive design that we all really appreciate across two major projects in Python. Another one we have for the API is conventions. This is going to sound crazy, but if you come from other frameworks, or especially from before Django existed, having your forms in a forms module is innovative. It's crazy. And it works this way across the Django stack. And what's great about this is if you are called into an existing Django project and forms are not in forms or views are not in views, then you know it's time to leave, right? That there's something wrong, right? No matter, and they'll give you whatever their technical lead gives you as a great excuse. You know, that's the tip of the iceberg. Forms, again, there's no code names, there's no puns, no underscores. It's intuitive. Models here, I love animations. The Pi class inherits from models.model. It's boring, but we know it. You can't forget it. The same thing goes for field names. The integer field. It's obvious. Real quick on models, this is a pro tip that we'll expand upon in our next edition of our book. Fat models. Everybody knows what fat models are? Raise your hand. Okay, for those who don't know it, the idea is rather than putting your business logic in your views, you put as much as possible into methods in your models. So you get these nice big models, and that way if you have an HTML view or several different versions of the HTML views, you just call the method on the model and in each different view, so that way you're not copy pasting code from one view to another, be it different versions of similar HTML views or RESTful REST APIs, and it's going to generally perform a lot better than a template tag. However, the problem is that you can get really big models, like obese models, and like 1,000-line models. So this is a pain to debug, and also writing tests for it is a pain. So instead, use helper functions. Here, I've got my pie model, and I've got a couple methods in here. And what these methods do is I've written a utils module, and I've imported it with a handy namespace. And then here is savory, since is savory, if my pie is savory, if it's not modifying the state of the object, it is, why not just put in a function? Because then it's easier to test. We don't even have to set up all the create models to test, or model instances to test as savory. And underneath it, you can see, where I didn't highlight it, I'm doing it with the property. So it's really, really easy. So these API conventions, they encourage clean design. We can look at somebody else's project and know really quickly whether or not it's good or bad. Because I can tell you there is, Flask is all great, Bottle's all great, these micro frameworks are great. They are still fall victim to spaghetti code because people, there are people who don't follow these conventions, and it's harder to recognize because people are brilliant, and they'll come up with brilliant, indecipherable designs. And these conventions also tell us where to separate content and presentation. And what this really means, when we get down to it, when we get past all the mumbo-jumbo, is we're not fighting over how to build things. We're getting things done, which is why we can afford to be here today. Next up, reason number 4, Django's awesome views. So if you know calculus, the way that Django works, it's part of a group of frameworks in 2005, or around 2005, that embrace the concept that views can be HTTP requests could be handled via functions. And so, in essence, the way it works is when we define our function up at the top, we define a HTTP response of some sort, and then when we burn away the code, the transformation of the function, which I guess is part of calculus if we're getting fancy, is in between those parts. And this is simple. This is really easy to teach, and it keeps our head on the block. So yeah, there it is. That's I guess, basic calculus for you. But what about class-based views? They suck, right? They don't suck. I like them a lot. I've done a lot of work on class-based views. But what the heck does this mean? Why are we doing this? And Russ is going to talk about this a lot, so I'm trying not to steal your thunder, buddy. So here, this is what I'm looking at is source code from Django itself. This is the core view object in Django, or core view class. This is up here. We've got some keyword control code. Let's not worry about that. We've got some introspection code that helps Python. Maybe Russ will talk about that. But here, we have what really counts. And this is a view callable. It is a callable instance of a view. Basically, Django defines the view, the view function that's going to be passed to the HTTP routing. So that way, yeah, it's still the same thing. It's still, all this is the view class is actually being called as a function, and the calculus remains. It's just a different way of naming it. That's a simple Danny approach. It's very scientific. All right, Django has awesome longevity. So there's a slow deprecation of Django that we're all aware of. I was playing around with this, and I realized that this code that I had earlier in my talk, it actually works across all of these versions of Django. Well, actually, it doesn't quite. Yeah, the problem is Python changed. Python changed so that way, so this wouldn't work in very early versions of Django, because I don't think very early versions of Django will run under like Python 2.6 and Python 2.7. It'd be neat to see someone like figure out if that's the case. Woohoo! This one's right above, so I get a chance to get some water. Okay. All right. So, Django. Django has awesome features. Like, here's the simple list, right? Just a few. So, Django's admin is awesome. It's how Django was sold. It's still sold this way, even though it's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I'm going to address that in a second. But getting past selling Django, this is such a handy tool. Just these 3 lines of code, when I define models and I need to create some test data, just remembering these 3 lines of code and without all the fanciness of Django, I memorized this a long time ago. However, I want to give another pro tip, and that's that who here is working with NoSQL, like MongoDB, Redis, to store persistent data? Well, yeah, I guess I do. Don't hack the admin to make it work with your stuff. Really, don't do it. Write it from scratch. It's going to be easier than hacking the admin, and it's going to be more stable, because if Django is a dot release, or there's some tiny change in it, or the NoSQL library that you're using changes in some way, everything's going to break, and then you're going to be pulling out hair. I've been there. It's why these libraries always have bit rot. It's a huge pain. So write it from scratch. So last year I wrote Django Mongonaut, which uses a similar API to and Bootstrap as a theme. It uses a similar API to the Django contrib admin, but I just did it my way, and it was easy. It didn't take me that long, and it wasn't that hard. It certainly was easier than trying to hack the admin to work with Mongo Engine. So yeah, that's where you can find that. The other thing is at the sprints, I'm going to be working on what I call admin 2. Oops, I have the wrong URL at the bottom, which is going to follow a similar API pattern, but will work with standard Django models. And that's where it is. And that's what I'll be sprinting on. So please join me. So yeah, there's our feature set. And there's a lot of them. Like, our book has 300 pages, and that's all we covered. So there's a lot. And I don't want to... Yeah, anyway, so I can go into them, but I think I'll go on to the next reason. And here's where I get fun. This is Django's full stack is awesome. Who uses Flask or Bottle and thinks that Django is too heavy? Raise your hand. Okay. Well, then we're going to, maybe there's people watching, or Kenneth Wrights isn't around. So here's one good reason for Django's full stack being awesome. It dominates hackathons. You don't have to worry about the Wi-Fi. So you're not having to worry about tons of third-party packages. If you can't download them because the Wi-Fi is down, you've got it all with Django in one place. So that's one handy thing. And building on that is actually building companies. This is really interesting. So today, like right now, maybe in Poland, certainly in the United States, and probably all over the world, there are projects being done with stock Django and Python. So what I mean by that is the standard libraries. No third-party packages, nothing from the Python package index. And they have no concept of our world. They don't know that there's conferences. And so last year, in one of the examples one of the times I've run into it, there's this company in Los Angeles based out of Pasadena, out of Caltech really, which is, JPL and stuff. Where they have over $5 million of funding. And what they do is they have this app that checks your house's usage of heavy appliances like refrigerators and washers and stuff like that. And then you can like tune your usage of it and reduce your costs. And the local power companies are working with them. And they have no third-party packages. None, or not until I talked to them. Maybe they do now. They didn't know any of this stuff existed. They just coded it themselves off of Python and Django and Apache. And they had lots of pain because they reinvented the wheel a lot of times. And we can be really critical of them, but they are very profitable. They are bringing in the money. So it makes you think, like people building stuff. When you first jump into a tool set and your boss is saying, or your investors are saying, oh, we need this, we need that, you don't have time to do a full investigation. And this is where Django's full stack is a win. This is where it's really, really handy. The only thing I could say that would be nice to prevent this kind of thing from happening is maybe more mentions of the outside community in the Django docs. Maybe that would help these people, but these poor people who are profitable off of Django's full stack. So, okay. However, that's annoying. I mean, I couldn't imagine like doing lots of request actions without Python requests. We do have thousands of awesome third-party packages, and I ask this question is asked periodically. And so on Django packages, we have nearly 1,800 packages on Django packages, and I wrote this script for the Python package index, and just off of the HTML view, I found over 4,500 Django tagged packages on the Python package index. But because Python is also Django, and there's 30,000 packages in the package index, even if a small portion of those work with Django, like they're importable because maybe they need ZOP or something like that, that's incredible. That is unbelievable power at our fingertips. For example, if I want to figure out the orbital trajectory of bodies like Mars and Venus and Earth through the solar system, all I need to do is pip install a library written by Brandon Rhodes, who I saw over there somewhere, and I have that in my Django project. I don't have to do the math. Django, so anyway, yeah, that's awesome. So okay, the documentation reason, let's go into that. So we have the culture of documentation. We're known for setting the bar for documentation, but what's really interesting is documentation has left Django behind. There are Python projects out there that can claim that they have better documentation. But they claim it because we set the bar. We said, we're no longer saying read the manual file or read the source code. That's considered evil now in Python. If you are being told to read the source code to figure out basic functionality, you are lambasted. If you have a repo or a ticket tracker, if you announce something and you don't have documentation, people start filing tickets. Where's the documentation? So yeah, this has gone beyond Django, and this makes us working with the rest of the community awesome because they play by our rules. Okay, Django is humble. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, we have this long tradition of invited critical talks, and some were incredible. Cal Henderson and Eric Florenzano's were pivotal in the history of Django. These things, they shaped the code base. They shaped the core team because we got more people in core, and Django started to evolve I think, better because of it. And it shaped the community, and it shaped me because what it teaches us by inviting people, please don't submit them as talks because it means you have an agenda. Yeah, don't submit a talk about it, but be invited. But anyway, so yeah, for me, what it taught me was that when you invite criticism of your work, it makes a difference because then you know that people aren't just giving you platitudes. They're giving you, hopefully, real, honest answers. And our book is much better for it. If you ever talk to Jacob Kaplan-Moss, ask him about the commentary he gave us during his review of the book. Yeah, there's a lot of tears and crying on that one on my part. Okay, community. This is the last reason, and it's important. So for starters, and I could end the talk here. Yeah, Django brought Audrey and I together. The second picture is our first date. It was at PyCon 2010. That's the night I proposed to her. And she wrote that statement in her author note in the book, but I wish I had written it. And I'd copy and paste it, but then I'd have to deal with all the licensing and be kind of. Can you put under a MIT license or something? Creative Commons will work too. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I could finish on that, but I think I want to say a little bit more. I want to talk about the awesome generosity of our community. There's this unwritten rule that we have that the more you put in, the more our community puts out. So, and this is not just Django, it's also Python. I think that's the case for me. I think anyone who's started to really contribute to our community, be it pull requests, running events, documenting, writing books, whatever, the community starts giving back. It's an amazing investment. And I'll give you a case study that I think makes a difference, and it's our book. So Audrey and I co-wrote this book, but we weren't the only ones involved. There was over 125 people who helped us, and some of them put in a lot of time. Malcolm Tredenik and Kenneth Love especially, we couldn't have done it without you guys. In return, what we did is, because we received so much help, we've given out the PDF of the book for free to developers who requested it personally in email. Don't Twitter me, don't put on Facebook, don't put in comments, email us, and we'll talk about it. If you're CEO of a company, really stop requesting free copies. And also, the other thing is, if you're in a country where you can't use our monetary system, like Iran, you can't use credit cards or PayPal, email me, and we'll send you a book. But we didn't do it exactly for free. We asked for some stuff in return. Well, so we could eat dinner. We asked them to buy the book whenever they could. But more importantly, we asked them to either give to charity or do something nice for someone. We just kind of threw it out there and said, oh, what would happen? All right, so let's go over what happened. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of people coming into programming have outside skills: music, art, writing. I'm blanking on things, but they have these professional outside skills, and they've used them now to help others. So, for example, Ethan Lohman taught music every day or every Friday for an hour. Okay, and then education was a popular theme, be it people teaching at local events, or here are some teachers at public schools added Django and Python to their curriculum. Other people contributed to open source. This was really popular. These are people who couldn't afford or felt they didn't have a good outside skill, or they didn't have something else to give. They contributed to open source, and they said, you inspired us to do it. Another thing that we got a lot was we were emailed copies of receipts of people giving to charities. Here, someone gave $15 for Python 3 and PyPy. We got this a lot, and what's awesome about this is there are people that say, hey, thanks for your book. I got a job. I'm going to contribute to charity. You really made my day. I've been able to get a better place to live and stuff. And when we get these, when we've had a hard day or things haven't gone wrong with the client, this is so powerful to see that we are helping people make differences to the world, to giving to charity or projects. This guy bought a homeless man dinner. People have gotten involved in charities and positive efforts around the world because we ask them to. Another thing is a lot of people have built projects for local positive groups in their community, so like schools, temples, churches, mosques. And this is, again, it's not at the global stage, but it's at the local side of things, and this is really awesome. And also, we apparently are involved in current events. So Keith Donaldson, his work on this project, evidenceupload.org, was shaped by our book, and it was used to send 2 gigabytes to the FBI after the Boston, Massachusetts bombings not too long ago. So yeah, it's just like, wow, I had no idea this would happen. The thing is people took our theme and they did good work, and they were awesome. This is incredible. They didn't contribute to Django as a project or Python as a project. Well, some of them did, maybe, but they contributed to the world. And so I'm gonna finish my keynote with a call to action that I'd like to see, and that's that I want us to change the world, and that means code, running events, writing books, helping other people, making the world a better place. So yeah, and then one more thing.